It all began on a warm summer night at a friend's party. I had recently moved to the city, seeking new experiences and a fresh start. The party was in full swing, with laughter and music filling the air. As I scanned the crowd, my eyes landed on her, Sarah. She was a vision of joy and energy, dancing to the beat with a smile that seemed to light up the entire room. Something about her presence drew me in, and I knew I had to introduce myself. With a deep breath and a hint of nervousness, I made my way through the lively crowd to where she was dancing. When our eyes met, it felt like the world had momentarily stopped. I mustered the courage to say hello, and as we started talking, it was as if we had known each other for a lifetime. As the night unfolded, we found ourselves engrossed in conversation, sharing stories and laughter. We discovered our shared love for music, our dreams of traveling the world, and our adventurous spirits. It was a connection unlike any I had ever felt before. As the hours passed, we danced, laughed, and got to know each other. That serendipitous meeting at the party was the start of something beautiful. In the months that followed, Sarah and I grew closer. We explored the city together, uncovering its hidden gems and creating memories that would last a lifetime. Our bond deepened with every adventure we embarked on. One sunny day, I surprised Sarah with a picnic in our favorite park. As we sat on a cozy blanket surrounded by nature's beauty, I nervously presented her with a small, carefully wrapped box. Inside was a handcrafted necklace with a pendant in the shape of a key. With trembling hands, I looked into her eyes and said, "This is the key to my heart, Sarah. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Tears welled up in her eyes as she nodded and whispered, "Yes." In that moment, our commitment to a lifetime of happiness together was sealed with a promise and a kiss. Our engagement was a time of joy and excitement, celebrated with our closest friends and family. Together, we began planning the wedding we had always dreamed of. Our wedding day arrived bathed in golden sunlight. Sarah looked breathtaking in her wedding gown, and I couldn't take my eyes off her. As we stood beneath a floral arch, surrounded by the people we loved, we exchanged heartfelt vows. "I promise to stand by your side through all of life's adventures," I said, my voice filled with emotion. Sarah's eyes sparkled with happiness as she declared her love and commitment to me. The reception that followed was a celebration of our love story. We danced, laughed, and reveled in the company of friends and family. Our first dance as a married couple was a moment of pure magic, lost in each other's eyes. As the day turned into night, we looked out at the world that lay ahead of us, hand in hand, knowing that our love story had only just begun. Our journey as a family took a significant turn when Sarah, my wife, decided to become a stay-at-home mom. It was a decision she didn't take lightly. We had talked about it for months, weighed the pros and cons, and ultimately arrived at a choice that felt right for us and our growing family. With Sarah taking on the role of a stay-at-home mom, I knew that the responsibility of providing for our family would fall squarely on my shoulders. It was a daunting challenge, but one that I embraced wholeheartedly. I threw myself into my work, putting in long hours and taking on additional responsibilities to ensure we had the financial stability we needed. I knew that Sarah's decision to stay home was a gift to our family, and I was determined to make it work. The early mornings and late nights at the office became routine as I pursued promotions and pay raises. My work at the local TV station as a technician took a lot of effort and required me to work odd hours at times. I made a conscious effort to excel in my career, not only for my own satisfaction, but also to provide the best possible life for Sarah and our child. Budgeting and financial planning became essential aspects of our lives. We watched our spending carefully, cutting unnecessary expenses while prioritizing our child's well-being and future. It wasn't always easy, but the knowledge that Sarah was nurturing our child's development at home provided me with the motivation to persevere. Over time, I noticed that she was becoming increasingly distant, emotionally and physically. The first signs were subtle, moments when she seemed lost in thought or preoccupied with something other than our family. Our communication, once open and honest, grew strained as she withdrew into herself. I attempted to broach the subject, gently expressing my concern for her well-being, but she brushed it off, assuring me that she was just going through a phase. As weeks turned into months, our physical intimacy began to dwindle. What had once been a passionate and fulfilling aspect of our relationship now felt distant and infrequent. I tried to initiate conversations about our changing dynamic, but Sarah seemed uninterested in addressing the issue. My concern for her and our relationship grew with each passing day. The lack of physical intimacy was only a symptom of a deeper problem. A new and unsettling pattern began to emerge. Sarah's behavior shifted once again, this time in a way that set off alarm bells in my mind. She started spending an increasing amount of time on her phone, often late into the night, and grew defensive when I asked about it. At first, I dismissed it as a harmless distraction, perhaps a newfound interest or hobby she hadn't shared with me. But as the days turned into weeks, my unease deepened. Her phone became her constant companion, and she seemed distant and preoccupied. The signs were becoming too clear to ignore. I began to suspect that Sarah might be involved with someone else, and the mere thought was like a knife through my heart. My mind raced with questions, doubts, and painful scenarios. I somehow tried to sleep over it for a few days, thinking maybe I was too stressed. Then one fateful day, I decided to surprise my wife by coming home early. I parked my car and walked into my home. The house was fragrant with scented candles, and I found that odd. My instincts told me to remove my shoes and walk towards my bedroom. I heard the moans, and it made my heart beat faster, and I almost fainted. I somehow walked towards the room and was horrified to see my beloved wife in a position that I had only read about in Kama Sutra. The room was full of fragrance that gave me nausea. My wife and her partner had no idea I was watching. They were focused on what they were doing. I somehow took out my phone, recorded a small video, and walked out of the room. I got in my car and drove a few miles away from the house. When I got out of the car, I vomited, thinking of what I had seen. My beloved wife with our neighbor, and they did not use any protection. The discovery of my wife's infidelity was a gut-wrenching experience that left me feeling like I had been punched in the chest. The images of her with our neighbor, engaged in intimate acts, were seared into my memory. I couldn't escape the feeling of betrayal, and it gnawed at me relentlessly. Lying there on the side of the road, looking up at the sky, I felt an overwhelming mix of emotions. The initial shock and disbelief gave way to anger, and that anger soon morphed into a profound sense of hurt. I had trusted my wife completely, and this breach of trust was a wound that cut deep. Questions swirled in my mind, tormenting me with their lack of answers. Why had she done this? Had our marriage been a lie all along? What could I have done differently to prevent this? I replayed our years together, searching for signs, clues, or moments where I might have missed the cracks in our relationship. Bitterness and resentment welled up inside me, but I knew that responding with violence or impulsivity would only lead to more pain. I couldn't let my anger dictate my actions. I had to plan my revenge with a cool, calculating mind. I called my wife and told her I would not be home for the next 2 days as the other technician was in the hospital, and I needed to fill in for him. She tried to suppress her delight with a pitiful sound. "I'm going to miss you." She did not suspect anything, and no one with any logic would have believed my lie. I chuckled at my own lie a few minutes later. Then I called an old friend who was now a lawyer and specialized in divorce cases. I met him quickly, explained what I saw, and showed him the video I shot. He said I had enough evidence to prove my wife's infidelity. The looming divorce also meant that my child would inevitably be caught in the middle, and that thought weighed heavily on my conscience. As I embarked on this painful journey toward the dissolution of my marriage, I braced myself for a roller coaster of emotions and a future filled with uncertainties. My focus now was on protecting my child's well-being and finding a way to heal from the deep wounds inflicted by this betrayal. I could feel the gears of my plan turning, and a simmering rage fueled my determination. My lawyer had been swift in initiating the divorce proceedings, and the anticipation of the grand reveal gnawed at me. I instructed my friend to position himself near my home, ensuring he could observe the neighbor's arrival. Just as we had planned, my friend was in position, and within a few minutes, the neighbor entered my home. I received a call from him, and he simply stated, "The eagle has landed." It was a surreal moment, and I found myself torn between laughter and seriousness. Unable to contain my emotions, I made a run for the payphone near our local TV station, still chuckling to myself as I repeated, "The eagle has landed." The absurdity of it all seemed to provide a strange sense of catharsis or release of the pent-up emotions that had been festering since that fateful day when I discovered my wife's infidelity. I did laugh on my way to the payphone. I was on the edge of my seat, my heart pounding as the news reporters discussed the supposed drug problem in our town. The plan I had set in motion was unfolding right before my eyes. In a matter of minutes, the situation had escalated into a full-blown circus on live TV. I watched in a mix of shock and amusement as the SWAT team arrived, surrounded by camera crews eager to capture every moment. It was like a surreal drama playing out on my television screen, and I couldn't help but chuckle each time they talked about exposing something. My phone started buzzing incessantly. It seemed like everyone I knew was calling. Friends, in-laws, and even my parents. I played the role of the shocked and surprised husband, all the while feeling a strange sense of satisfaction. My in-laws apologized, and they couldn't believe what had transpired. I stood my ground, asking my wife to leave, leaving her no choice but to go to her parents' place. I had no intention of letting her near our child. The very next day, I wasted no time in filing for divorce. My wife had nothing to contest. Her betrayal had been exposed for the world to see. She received a portion of my savings and my car, a small price to pay for my newfound freedom. While I had my vengeance, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal and the unanswered questions about why she had done this to me. I had always believed I had been a good husband, and I couldn't fathom why she had strayed. The mysterious caller who had tipped off the reporter remained an enigma, and the authorities continued their search. It seemed as though the identity of the informant would remain a well-guarded secret, buried beneath layers of anonymity. Despite my lingering pain and confusion, I focused on a new purpose, being the best father I could be for my child. I was determined to raise him with strong character and values, ensuring he grew into a man who would never betray the trust of those who loved him. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.